I think the first point to make is that we have elements of an outstanding press in this country. We certainly have fantastic traditions of the press. Indeed, the expose of phone hacking only happened because of the rigour and dedication of parts of the press. So I think it's very, very important that the recommendations that come out of this inquiry uphold that freedom of the press and those great traditions. I think, secondly, reading the compelling evidence that has been put to this inquiry, I think particularly of the evidence of Kate and Jerry McCann, there's clearly something that has gone very wrong in parts of the way the press deal with individuals who don't seek celebrity, and I hope that can be put right by some of the recommendations of this inquiry. I think, thirdly, it's right to acknowledge that the failure to get to grips with these issues earlier is a collective failure of the establishment. The press, the police who didn't investigate properly, and indeed politicians who were at least aware of some of what was going on and didn't speak out. Fourthly, I think it's right to say right at the outset that an organisation like News International had huge power, and I think politicians were reticent of speaking out about some of the practices that were exposed. I include myself in that. There came a moment when I felt it was impossible not to speak out. I knew at that moment I was crossing a Rubicon, if you like. I did do that, and I think it was the right thing to do. The final thing I want to say to you, sir, is that no politician is going to come before you and give you a blank cheque, and you wouldn't expect that, I know, from reading the evidence. But I think there is a huge responsibility on politicians to make sure, and I gather this was echoed by Sir John Major this morning, to make sure that your recommendations do not end up on a dusty shelf somewhere, as I think you yourself have remarked.
Yes, I said the second shelf. Mr. Paxman thought it ought to be the bottom shelf.
I remember reading that, sir. I remember reading that. But I think we have a huge responsibility, and I want to say, really echoing something you said at the beginning of this week, and something that Tony Blair said in his testimony, that for any Prime Minister, this is going to be very difficult. And I want to say that I will do everything I can to seek to work on a cross-party basis to ensure that your recommendations provide a framework for us for the future.